I know, it's been far too long since I cranked out a review, so I decided to pick up a game that I had minimal experience with and something that I know I could review somewhat easily. Cobra Triangle on the Nintendo Entertainment System. It's made by Rare, so you know this game is going to be tough as balls. And yes, it is. The game has a very simple premise. Pilot your boat through 25 or so stages, completing various objectives while not taking too much damage to sink your boat. Sounds easy, but it's far, far from it. First off, let's talk about the aesthetics of the game. It looks very similar to many other Rare games, such as Captain Skyhawk, Snake Rattle and Roll, and Battletoads. I'm not saying that this is a bad thing. In fact, far from it. Rare had their specific style, and Cobra Triangle doesn't deviate from that. Now that this is out of the way, let's talk about the gameplay. Again, each stage has a different mission. For example, the first stage is a simple race to the finish. There are stages in which you must defuse mines by picking them up and dropping them into a specified square. There are uphill climbs in which you must avoid floating logs of whirlpools. You may have to defend a group of 8 stranded swimmers from an onslaught of enemy boats and UFOs. It's pretty neat to see that there is plenty to keep you occupied. To help you complete your missions, you do get to power up your boat, using a similar system as games like Gradius and Life Force. There are 5 options on the bottom of the screen that will scroll as you pick up power-up pods in the levels. Turbo, Fire, Speed, Missile, and Force. Minus one of them, they're fairly self-explanatory, but I'll go through them all real quick anyway. Turbo is your acceleration, making you hit top speed almost instantly. Fire increases your basic shots, to the point in which they will fire from all directions, instead of just in front of you. Speed increases the top speed of your craft. Missile fires secondary, powerful rockets at enemies, and can eventually gain homing abilities. And the confusingly named Force is simply invulnerability for a few seconds. I never got to a point where I really need to use it, but by watching a video on a channel called You Can Beat Video Games, there is a stage in which it's nearly required. Even with all of these possible upgrades, holy crap is this game hard! Like Battletoads, the first few stages lure you in with a false sense of security, as the opening race isn't so bad. What's interesting is that in some of these races there's a fork, and subsequent stages will change depending on which way you go. If you go left, the second level is a bonus stage of sorts, where you collect power-up pods and can quickly gain new abilities to prepare for the upcoming hazards. If you go right, however, you now need to take care of the mines, and must wait a few stages before you hit the collection of pods level. No matter which way you take, Stage 5 will always end up in a boss fight against a sea creature. And these bosses are no joke since you can't easily strafe, and yet if you aren't moving, you're an easy target yourself. I think the hardest stages of the game are these stupid reach the top of the river levels. Again, there are 2 main threats, rotating logs and shifting whirlpools. The logs are bad enough as they fling you backwards and oddly enough cannot be destroyed by any of your shots. Usually when you come across these, they're in a line, making you drive to a specific area to avoid them. But then we come to the whirlpools, a creation of Satan himself. There are 2 threats that the whirlpools contain. First, if you hit the center of one, your craft sinks faster than the Titanic. I think the instant death is the better of the 2 threats though, as the other thing that the whirlpool does is spin your boat around and fling you back down the river, which in turn causes the whirlpool to respawn. This has gotta be the most aggravating thing about the game, as I've lost most of my lives to these circular deliverers of death. Being that I could only make it to about stage 10, I still had a lot of game to play, but I just cannot make it that far. On top of all this, you also have a very tight time limit. And of course, it doesn't reset upon death, so that's fun. Nothing like sinking in a whirlpool, then getting a timeout and losing a second life. Normally, dying doesn't send you back to the start of the stage, but timeouts do. In addition to the colorful look of the game, I gotta say, I love the speedometer that's shown on the HUD. Yes, there's not really any point to it, but it looks so believable with how smoothly it operates that I just needed to mention it. As for the music, it's pretty good. Some stages don't have any, and I guess it's to build suspense, but later levels have some upbeat themes that feel appropriate to their objective. Those damned upriver races have some really neat dramatic music that perfectly fits the frustration of the stages. It's probably not anything you'll listen to on your way to school or work, but when playing the game, it works. And that's all I got for Cobra Triangle. I kinda wish I could make it further into the game to be able to show off more, but after multiple hours and attempts, I just cannot do it. It's no secret that Rare made some excruciatingly difficult games back in the NES days. In fact, now that I think about it, the only Rare developed NES game that I think I'm able to complete at all is Captain Skyhawk. In any case, if you take away the difficulty, Cobra Triangle is still a solid game that looks, sounds, and plays great, making it a worthy cartridge to add to your collection. Final score? 5 out of 7. This is Reaper. Happy fragging.